you know, but I wish I could just run and with 7 feet and run and just dunk. Like, that takes no skill at all. I got to actually learn how to play basketball and how to have skill, you know. I take that any day. You know, I'm not a system player. I am a system.
Time to re-up YouTube. Your boy Young Mustard is back with another video. And guys, James Harden, he's cooked. When you talk about the whole world coming down on you at once, that's exactly what James Harden is going through right now. He's getting crushed by players, fans, media members, hell, even his own stans are jumping ship. Because as we all know, he just got traded to the Los Angeles Clippers, and beforehand they were 3-1. Now since they've gotten him, they are 0-4, which begs the ultimate question that I've titled this video and many are asking. Did this fat bearded slob ruin the Los Angeles Clippers and make them worse? Before we go any further though, and I answer that question, y'all make sure you drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and press that bell for post notifications. Harden coming into the year, in my opinion, was a top 25 player in the league bare minimum. He came off of a season where he led the league in assists and was one of the best playmakers in the league. Because of how great he was in the pick and roll, him and Joel Embiid were one of the best duos in the NBA. Embiid led the league in scoring again and was the MVP for the first time in his career. Unfortunately though, we know how that whole situation played out. Embiid choked and Harden choked and they lost in the second round. And now here we are with James Harden on the team that he wanted to be on after he said, "I'm never gonna play for Daryl Morey again." Side note, it is crazy to me how James Harden gets anything he wants whenever he wants to be traded, right? He wanted to leave Houston, stood on business, and went to Brooklyn. Wanted to leave Brooklyn, stood on business, and went to Philly. Wanted to leave Philly, stood on business, and went to the Clippers. It's like the most undeserving people always get what they want in this life. Crazy how it works. Nonetheless though, when you look at this Clippers team right now, they are really going through it. Everybody is struggling so far in this stretch with James Harden. And so far with James Harden on the court, not only are they 0-4 in their team record, but when he's actually playing the minutes, they're -67. And when James Harden is on the bench instead of on the court, they're +27. So statistically speaking, they are playing better when James Harden is not on the court. Now there are multiple explanations as for why the Clippers are playing so bad to start off the season with James Harden. The first one being Zubac is terrible.
The man cannot play the game of basketball. He has small hands. He can't catch the ball. He's got bad feet. He can't really move. Even though he's mobile, doesn't really know what he's doing. Doesn't have a post move that he puts to memory that he can do 2 times in a row. He has no game whatsoever. Plays no defense. Doesn't have the heart, the passion, or anything that comes with it.
Rim protection has gotten worse, and on the perimeter, he is cooked. I mean, we all know every year, Luka's always looking for that Zubac switch, and so is every other guard in the league right now. He is genuinely just a bad player at the sport right now, which leads into the second problem with this team, their lack of size. When Zubac is your #1 force on the interior on both sides of the ball, that's a problem. This team desperately needs more size, length, and strength on the interior, and gaining James Harden had them lose a couple of those pieces that provided that. Now, I don't think those pieces were really going to be a difference maker regardless, but at the end of the day, guys like Batum and Rocco, they could have helped out in those areas. I mean, even when you look at the rebounding numbers for this team, they're teetering on bottom 10 in the NBA in offensive rebounds, total rebounds, and defensive rebounds. They're being killed on the glass pretty routinely, and that was happening before they traded for James Harden. The only reason they were able to overcome that is because they were facing teams like the Utah Jazz. Now that I think about it, I actually think they lost that game. Man, my fault. But that leads into another issue with this team that they've had that James Harden has definitely contributed to, and that is the defense. Remember that time when the Clippers were hyped up because they had the best defensive wing duo since like Jordan and Pippen? That graphic of, you know, Lou Williams being compared to Ron Harper, Kawhi Leonard being compared to Michael Jordan, Paul George compared to Scottie Pippen, Montrezl Harrell compared to Dennis Rodman. That shit is so crazy looking back on it. My God, this Clippers team has been such a disappointment. My point in saying all that though is that Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, they're not enough to carry this team to be where they need to be on that side of the ball, especially with the supporting cast that they have. Russell Westbrook can be a plus defender, but he's pretty inconsistent. He ball watches a lot, and off the ball in general, he's just a bad defender. Zubac, like I said earlier, he's just not good at the sport. Terrence Mann is solid, but he's not anything special on that side of the ball. PJ Tucker can give you some hustle defensively, but he's not who he used to be, and offensively, he's a huge negative, so having him on the court hurts you in any capacity. Norman Powell isn't good defensively, and then that brings you to James Harden, who they just added. Harden has never really been a good defender, and now he's even worse than he used to be. Keep in mind, he has to play himself into shape, so offensively and defensively, he's gonna be a little bit slow. So Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, they have a lot on their plate to carry this team just to be a middle of the pack defense in the league, which is around where they are right now, which is very telling for a Clippers team that has had a fairly light schedule. The only good offensive team they faced this year is the Dallas Mavericks, and we all know how that went. They got torched. And before people start to say that Nicholas Batum and Robert Covington, they would have helped defensively, let's be serious. This is 2023, not 2018. They're definitely not liabilities on defense or anything. They can be useful in spots, but they are not game changers anymore. The Clippers were already having defensive struggles last year with those two on the roster. Now, I know another thing that's also affecting this team is Kawhi Leonard not playing up to capabilities. And to that I say, let's get a grip on reality here. Kawhi Leonard is going to start off slow. He's coming off of a meniscus tear last year in the playoffs. The same thing happened last year when Kawhi Leonard had to play himself into shape. And then post-January, he went on like an insane run. Come playoff time, and especially during the offs, he's gonna be back in playoff mode and he's gonna be killing and torching the league. But that leads into James Harden himself, because a lot of these problems that I've brought up are issues with this team that they've had even before they traded for James Harden. This team traded for James Harden also because it made a lot of sense when you look at their turnover issues in the half court. Guys like Russell Westbrook and especially Paul George, they've had some issues when it comes to securing the ball. I've said this multiple times that PG, when he has a lot of responsibility to be a playmaker, whether it's the first or secondary one, he can be pretty turnover prone at times. His handle has gotten looser over the past couple of years, and I think asking him to be the secondary playmaker on this team was definitely not going to work out. So getting James Harden, even though right now they do lead the league in turnovers with James Harden, it made a lot of sense. Offensively, this team has very little creativity. I mean, even with James Harden, they're running pick and rolls with him and Kawhi Leonard. And of course, as you would expect, Kawhi wouldn't even be able to get to the rim in those situations. He would just pull up for a pick and pop, which Kawhi is very capable of, but the defense closes in on those situations and force him into a tough contested mid-range jumper. The idea of getting James Harden would be to make the game simpler for guys like Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, who are some of the best off-ball players in the league, especially PG-13. But if you're just going to be running actions of James Harden and Zubac and pick and rolls, or the occasional Kawhi Leonard roll with James Harden, then you should have never traded for him in the first place. Russell Westbrook can do that shit for you. James Harden has not been great with the Clippers, don't get me wrong, but the guy did miss an entire preseason, which is on him, I'm not gonna lie. But the fact of the matter is, he has to play himself into shape. On both ends, he's gonna be struggling. And sure, I don't expect his defense to be too much better. The guy is a negative on that side of the ball, you gotta just face that. But offensively, he was one of the best players in the league last year. There's no way you can go from a 20-11 guy leading the league in assists last year to being utter shit the way he's been. He's gotta play himself into shape. And once that happens, I strongly suggest that Ty Lue benches Russell Westbrook. The Clippers bench right now is pitiful, like just straight up garbage. And I think that Russell Westbrook leading that unit just makes sense for everybody involved, especially Kawhi Leonard defensively. Kawhi defensively is capable of playing the 4 at times, especially against certain lineups, but that should not be his role on a night in and night out basis, because not only has he regressed on that side of the ball, still good, but not the elite player he used to be, but it's asking a lot for Kawhi Leonard, coming off of meniscus tear and just suffered an ACL injury 2 years ago, to have to play one of the most tasking positions on that side of the ball, power forward, because you want to fit Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Paul George, and him on the court at the same time. I mean, you can still do that in closing lineups and at certain points in the game, but doing that on a night in and night out basis, I promise you Kawhi Leonard's knees will turn into mashed potatoes. So that leads into the big question of the video, the whole purpose of this thing. Did James Harden make the Clippers a worse team? And my answer to that is no. The Clippers, in my opinion, were already a middle of the pack team in the Western Conference. I did not see this team making the conference finals before this trade, and I don't see them making the conference finals after this trade. I saw this as a pretty lateral move when they added James Harden to the team. We all know all roads lead to Denver, and they do not stand a chance against that team. And I'm gonna be honest, even if they didn't have Jamal Murray, I'll probably still pick the Nuggets to beat the Clippers. That's how much Jokic owns that franchise. And with the way the Timberwolves are playing, I'd probably take them over the Clippers right now in a series as well. Then you throw in a team like the Dallas Mavericks, and we all know Luka's history with that organization, and this time he has Kyrie instead of Porzingis. And come playoff time, you got 3 playoff droppers on one team with Kawhi Leonard. Paul George, Westbrook, and James Harden. Kawhi is going to be carrying a load at points in the playoffs when all of them drop at the same time. I'm just saying. For Harden to have made the Clippers worse, you would have had to believe in them in the first place, and that's the problem with a lot of you guys. You had faith in a team and organization that's given you little reason to have that in the first place. They blew their chance at legitimate contention in 2020, and in 2021, they also blew it because Kawhi Leonard's knees couldn't take it. And once that happened, their championship window was closed, in my opinion. The only reason they're making a lot of these moves is because financially, it makes a lot of sense to stay as competitive as you can right now. Moving into a new arena, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George on expiring deals, they got to do everything they can right now to make it up financially. They've got to still try their best to make it work no matter what the outcome is, because at the end of the day, Kawhi Leonard, when healthy, in my opinion, is a top 5 player. There aren't 5 guys you want in a playoff series right now over Kawhi Leonard. And when you have a guy like that on your team, you need to take advantage of every single second you have him on the roster. And James Harden being paired with him along with Paul George is gonna maximize those guys offensively come playoff time and in the regular season. So it wasn't a bad idea to get James Harden, and I don't believe he's made them worse. A lot of these issues that you see with the Clippers, they already had before. They were a bad to mediocre defense last year. They were struggling with rebounding before they got James Harden. Their turnover problems were an issue before Harden got there, and their lack of offensive creativity can get better over time. Just bench Russell Westbrook, run some better off-ball actions for Kawhi and PG, let Harden run the show with that starting lineup and Westbrook with the bench. And I don't know if it's possible, but if there's any way you can get Zubac off the team and get a viable replacement to aid with the size and length on the roster, do that ASAP. But hey, those are just my thoughts. You guys let me know your opinions down below in the comment section. Do y'all think that James Harden made the Clippers a worse roster? Let me know what y'all think down there. This is your boy Young Mustard signing out. You guys stay safe and have a blessed day. I'm out. Peace.
Goddamn, I had 4 hoes at one time, they were drilling me. I heard them little boy was plotting on killing me.